G'day, I'm David Applegate, author of the book The Boyhood of Cade, book one of the Empire of Elves, and welcome to Future Fantasy Empire. Today with me is Lisa Thomas, author of Unprecedented Times. Lisa, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Thomas. I'm from Birmingham in the UK, and I am the author of Unprecedented Times, which is the first book in a trilogy. I'm actually fundraising through book sales, so £2 of every book goes to charity. As well as that, I'm also a singer-songwriter, a GIF maker, a self-employed content writer, and a single mom of 3.
And at what point did you realise you wanted to be a writer?
That happened when I was quite young. When I was about 7 years old, entered into a poetry competition at school, and I just found a real love for writing and expressing myself through writing, because I was quite a quiet child. So I think I discovered that actually I can find my voice through writing. So yeah, it was when I was little, very little.
And Unprecedented Times is the first book?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, tell us more about it.
So basically, I had the idea when the COVID outbreak first started in China, and this was before it had moved anywhere else. Everyone was saying that it was just going to be like the bird flu, nothing to worry about. And I just had this story idea as to what would happen if it were to escalate, if the virus were to spread around the world, if we were to go into lockdown, if it became a pandemic, and if it mutated. And then the real world sort of mirrored my book up until a certain point. So then I turned it into a sort of fact meets fiction book and started including real references and statistics from the pandemic, with the view of making it a book that future generations could look back on and actually read to understand what it was like to live through the pandemic. So the book started off as a story, but then it sort of became fact meets fiction as the real world followed it. And basically, in my story, the virus mutates and it becomes much more lethal, much more contagious, and we basically have to make a decision. If we do nothing, we could potentially lose up to 75% of the world's population. So we have to decide, do we do nothing and let it run its course? Do we extract the people who are infected to keep them away from everyone else? Or do we eradicate all the infected people? And this is it's a sort of playing on the idea of humanity and the idea that we're better together, and you know, how far would we go to ensure our own survival?
And what preparations did you undertake to write this story?
Months and months of research. I think the research actually took just as long as actually writing the book did, because there's a lot of science involved, and I'm not a natural scientist whatsoever. And because because the story naturally flowed real life, I then included statistics and data and information from the pandemic, so that when future generations read it back, it was real, it wasn't fake to them. And also it sort of gave validity to the story, as it were. So it was important to me that I research everything thoroughly, just because it would be very easy for there to be plot holes and errors in my book, and I didn't want there to be any of that. I wanted it to be people to read it and to think, crikey, this could actually happen.
Other than the early days of the pandemic, did you have any other inspirations to this story?
Yes, the biggest inspiration that I have in this story is sort of love and appreciation, and the idea that we're better together. I believe that things are like money and holidays and cars and expensive houses and things like that. I don't think any of those things are actually important when it comes down to it. At the end of your life, you're not going to be thinking about what cars you've got. You're going to be thinking about the people in your life and the magical moments that you've made with them. So the idea of the book was really to remind people that actually what's important is what we've already got. It's each other. And it's also I get frustrated with things like racism and with things like homophobia and things like that, because I'm very much the sort of person that thinks that you should judge someone based on who they are and how they come across, you know, the kind of person that they are, their personality, their morals and whatnot. I don't think you should you should judge someone based on the colour of the skin or the God that they believe in or the person that they fall in love with. So I wanted to write this book to sort of remind people that actually underneath it all, we are all the same, and we are stronger when we're together and when we love each other. And unfortunately, the pandemic comes along, we realise this, but then it quickly goes away and we go straight back to racism and starting wars. So that was the idea, is I wanted to share the love and inspire people to be hopeful and to love one another, even strangers.
Yeah. And do you have a particular favourite book or author from
That's
which you...
to choose my favourite child.
Yeah.
I think my favourite book is Jane Eyre. It was one of the earliest books that I read, and it really had a massive impact on me, because I'd learned about the Bronte sisters and how during their time women weren't sort of able to write books. It wasn't the done thing, and their father supported the Bronte sisters in their decision to become authors. So I found that really inspiring, the fact that they paved the way for women like me to go out and write. But also, I love the book. The main character, she has a lot of opportunities to either do the right thing or to do what benefits her, and she always chooses the right path, despite the fact that it might not be what she's expected to do. And I think that really resonated with me, because I want to do the right thing. I don't just want to follow the crowd or do what I'm told to do. I'm going to do what I believe is right. And this strong character, when I read the book, I kind of related to this strong character and thought to myself, actually, that's what I want to be like.
And I suppose that helped with your research, and I gather you did a lot of research. Can you go into detail what you actually had to do to research your book?
Yeah, the research was kind of double-sided. On the one side, I had to understand how it was going in real life. So when the pandemic was sort of escalating, I had to keep very much on top of news and trends, because I was either saying something similar in my book or saying something that, you know, could integrate real life into it. So I had to keep very much on top of the news with regards to the pandemic and understanding how it was moving and what we were doing to try to combat it, and the political side to it and the economic side to it, because obviously it had a massive impact. It wasn't just a medical impact, it impacted us in a variety of ways. So I needed to make sure I understood all of these ways. But also, I needed to research and understand the science. I needed to understand how viruses mutate, what causes them to do that, and how we go about trying to prevent mutations, trying to immunize, trying to cure, because it was very important to me that my story be believable. And when people read it back now, they do say to me, it's scary because it could happen. And that's because I've researched everything and I've written it in such a way where there are no, I don't think there are any sort of holes in my research or anything like that. So yeah, there was very much science involved, but also there was a lot of research in what was going on currently at that time in the media.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of material. I suppose, like you said, it took longer or close to reading than writing. And everybody, when they read, they write. And you may not realize it, but you're going through the processes as you go along. And what advice would you give to a new writer?
The biggest advice I would give is, first, you have to have faith in yourself. I wanted to be an author for 30 years, and I didn't actually write my book until I was 36 years old. And the reason for that was because I didn't think that I could do it. And I realised that actually I don't know whether I can or I can't do it unless I actually try. You have to have that confidence in yourself to put your heart into your work and put your work out there. But one of the other pieces of advice that I would give to authors is that try not to add pressure onto yourself, because I see a lot of authors getting very disheartened and feeling like giving up because their book hasn't sold in the last 3 days. And I don't have any sort of criteria as to how many books I want to sell or where I want to be. I'm just sort of I'm going with it, and because of that, I don't get quite so disheartened as other people, because it's not like I don't feel like I'm sort of failing in that respect. I think a lot of people expect to come into this industry and have something magical happen overnight, and all of a sudden they're a famous author and they're selling 100 books each day. And unfortunately that's not going to be the case, because it is such a saturated market. You have to be very special. That's a very unique case where you do just become famous overnight from a book. So I would tell people to not try not to put pressure on yourself, but just enjoy the author journey and enjoy other authors and learning from other authors, speaking to them, support other authors, and they will support you. And you'll find that you'll naturally grow, and you'll get to a point where you feel like you are gaining success, but it won't come quickly. So try not to put that pressure on.
Yeah, it is a stressful industry, and a lot of people um, they have different ways of coping with the stress. Um, Believe it or not, a lot of writers have become famous and they've only written one book, and they never wrote a book again. And sometimes it actually was the stress of becoming famous. So you think writing is stressful? Apparently, fame is even more so. What would you do to deal with the stress?
Um, I have picked up my hobbies again. So when I was a child, I wanted to write a book, but I also wanted to write a song that made people happy. Because throughout my childhood, I had singing lessons, piano lessons, and drum lessons, and I had these ongoing for years. I loved music, absolutely loved it. But because I had a lack of confidence, I didn't like performing. I found it quite terrifying. I got quite anxious with performing. And when I got to a certain age, people started saying you need to be serious. Being an author or being a musician is not a serious career path. So I sort of focused on work then, and sort of put my music to one side. And I only really picked that back up again when I separated from my ex-husband. I felt like I needed to get back to who I was. So I started picking up music again, and I remembered how much of a fantastic way it is to deal with things. When I'm writing music or playing music, it makes me be able to deal with the pressures of life much easier. And I think everybody needs something like that. Everyone needs that sort of release. So when I get angry or frustrated, I will go and whack the hell out of my drum kit. Or if I'm feeling sad, I will write a song or sing along to the song. So yeah, I my go-to thing is music, and then if I'm not feeling music, which is very unlikely, I then go to baking. I like baking, and also I like eating. So those two hobbies work well together.
Yeah, there's a lot of hands-on work, I think, when it comes to dealing with stress. I suppose when kneading bread, you're really giving it your all.
Yeah, and
um,
bread machines.
I didn't. I just brought it up because they a lot of people who I've spoken to said they find a lot of stress relief when they work the dough when they cook.
Yeah, no, I enjoy cooking, but my go-to thing is music, simply because that stems from my childhood. That's how I dealt with a lot of pressures in my childhood. And so for me to get back to music, it kind of felt like I was sort of finding myself again, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I have particular songs and music from my childhood that I have the go-to. What do you like to do when you're not writing?
Mainly because I'm a self-employed content writer and digital marketer. I'm also a single mum of 3. So I don't have tons of free time when I'm not with the children or looking after them or doing my actual writing work that I get paid for. I'm either writing my book because I'm currently working on book 2 in the series now, and I'm also releasing music. So I released my first single in October last year, and I'm now on my 5th single. So that's what I mainly do when I've got the free time. Is I'll work on my book if I've got enough time to actually sit and think about it. If I've got just a short bit of time, sort of like a 3 hour, I'll work on my music.
That's amazing, and you have an amazing story, and thank you for making the time to join me and share your writing journey with me. I know for YouTube's sake that I have to declare, that you neither paid or were paid for this interview, and
No.
that any contributions made to my channel are voluntary. I just ask people subscribe, share the video, because though it does advertise me, it also advertises you. And
Yeah.
from my personal experience, the videos have helped book sales. So it's up to you. And thank you again for coming. And
Thank
I
you.
appreciate each and every one of you out there who've watched and subscribed. Thank you again, Lisa, for coming.
Thank you
Have
very much.
have a good day. Bye now.
Bye bye. Take care.